When you start learning English in the beginning, you don't know many words. You don't know a lot of grammatical structures, and there are a lot of things you want to say you can't actually say. Or when you get to your exam, your TOEFL or IELTS exam, then there are things you're not sure of. For instance, you want to use the word stuff in a sentence. You don't know if you should say, for instance, your stuff is here or your stuff are here. In such cases, the wise thing to do, a very good trick by the way, is to go to another grammatical structure, one that would deliver the same meaning without this part, without this thing you're not sure of. For instance, instead of saying your stuff is or are here, you could say you can find your stuff here, or I put your stuff here, or your stuff would be here if you look for it. Now, I used three different ways in order to say the very same thing. So, in other words, I used other words to say the same thing in other words. Now, this way you can avoid the mistake. But if you're in the beginning of your learning process and you don't know many words, one of the mistakes people make is when I tell them to start talking to someone, doing the daily exercises, practicing with another partner, or talk to themselves in order to improve their speaking, they would say, okay, I want to say this in English, but these words in my sentence I do not know, so I change it to something else. Then this grammatical structure I'm not sure of, so I'm going to switch to another way to say the same thing. So you start changing what you want to say, editing it in your mind while it's in your mother tongue, in your first language, and not English. Now, this is a very big mistake. Don't do that. Okay, start saying whatever you want to say. No restrictions, no limitations. Just what you want to say. Use as many complex words you don't know as possible. It doesn't matter. The grammatical structures, most of which you're not familiar with, it's okay. Don't panic. When you say whatever you want to say in your own language, by the way, you have to change it along the way into thinking in English from the very beginning and not doing it in your mother tongue and then turning it into English. But in the beginning, it's hard. I give you that. So it is acceptable for a very short period in the beginning that you do it in your mother tongue and then turn it into English, not translate it to English, turn it into English. Now, I'm going to talk about that later on, but for now, let's say you do this part. Now, say whatever you want to say in your own mother tongue. Then you try and turn it into another way of saying in English, which you're familiar with. It means first, for me, it's Farsi. So first, it's in Farsi. Many complex words, many compound and complex grammatical structures and sentence constructs, but then I look at my product and see, okay, there are these words I don't know how to say, and there are these grammatical structures I don't know how to make in English. So I change it into something else, something I know how to do. But here's the stipulation: you do not change the meaning, the message. What you want to convey using the English language, you don't change that. You just change the overall shape and figure, the presentation of the message, not the message itself. Now that's the key to learning. I see a lot of my students, they start chatting and talking to one another in their WhatsApp group and whatnot, but when they get to something that's really hard to say in English, they switch to their mother tongue and say the rest in Farsi and then switch back to English when it's something easy for them to say. It's a huge mistake because the learning happens when you're struggling to do something you're not completely in command of. So, when you get to something you don't know how to deliver in English, that's where you should actually stop and try again and again till you make sure you have found a way to deliver the same message. Then you move on. So those parts, the parts that are really hard for you, are the parts you actually learn in. So you remain in those parts, you linger as much as needed. Generate the content in English. Then, after you're satisfied you have conveyed the message, then move on to the next part of your conversation. Now, you get stuck there, you stay there, you figure it out for a few months, you're going to be an advanced speaker. It doesn't take any more than that. But if you move on and just stick to the parts you already know, well, it's going to take a really, really long time for you to get the hang of it. And when you get to a question, to something you don't actually know, your mind does this peculiar thing. It records that scene and sticks with it. So it has happened for myself for so many times. I got to word, for instance, chaotic. I remember the first time I saw the word chaotic, it was years and years ago. I didn't know the pronunciation of the word. And by the way, when I got to a new word, I never looked at the dictation of the word and decided what the pronunciation should be. I always looked for the word to hear the correct pronunciation, but sometimes it wasn't conscious choice. So I saw the word, I didn't know what the correct pronunciation was. I continued reading my text, but then I heard the same word in a movie a couple days later. Now, then I didn't know the dictation, the spelling of the word. Back when I was reading the word, I didn't know the correct pronunciation of the word. But when I got to the word and heard it, I realized it was the pronunciation of the same word. I didn't know how it's pronounced. So you see, my mind clicked. It looked for the pronunciation. And when I heard the word, it was looking for the dictation. So when the two matched, my mind told me it is the correct pronunciation of the word you've been looking for. Now, your mind is going to do the same, but you have to make it alert. You have to pose that question, create that question so that your mind is alert and actively looking for the answer to the question you have posed. Now, you do that, your mind does the rest. And that's the core of the learning process of the language. I hope you can benefit from this.